Chapter 14. "Aaron, it's time to eat," Kaleigh called as she stirred pasta sauce into the spaghetti. Aaron bolted down the hallway and into a kitchen chair. She pulled out a scalding bag of green beans from the microwave with 2 fingers and dropped it on the counter. She heard Lana's door creak open as well, but her mother never bolted anywhere. "Spaghetti again," she drawled. "It's healthy, cheap, and Aaron likes it," Kaleigh replied. Keeping the takeout bill under control was yet another perpetual argument between them. "What's he doing?" Lana asked, pointing to Aaron at the table. He had leaned over the scratched-up surface with his hands folded and his eyes closed. Kaleigh brought Aaron his plate and heard him say, "And please keep Jackson here because I love him. Amen." Kaleigh put the spaghetti down and stroked his hair. "Try not to get your hopes up, Angel, but if God listens to anyone, I'm sure it would be you." She planted a kiss on his temple and turned back to the fridge to get him a juice box. "Ridiculous," Lana hissed under her breath. "Can I speak with you outside for a minute, Mom?" Kaleigh asked, her tone clipped. It was one thing to demean every word that came out of Kayleigh's mouth. She couldn't stand the thought of Lana killing Aaron's dreams. Lana pranced outside, her arms crossed. When Kaleigh had shut the door, Lana asked, "What?" "We're really glad you came back," Kaleigh started, although she wasn't so sure about that. "But please don't talk to Aaron that way. I don't want to discourage him from doing something he's excited about. You're setting him up for more discouragement, teaching him to believe in fairy tales. He's 5 years old." Lana fluffed out her glossy black hair. "He's growing up." Visions of how fast she had had to grow up flashed in red behind Kaleigh's eyes. "Not yet," she ground out. "Don't get mad at me because you can't manage your own child. You're the one who had him at 18. Kaleigh knew rationally that pointing out Lana's hypocrisy would get her nowhere, but sometimes she couldn't help herself. "You were a pregnant teenager too." "Yes, I was, and think about how much easier my life would have been if I didn't have you." Lana stabbed a finger in time to the last 3 words at Kaleigh's chest. But words like that didn't hurt or shame Kaleigh anymore. Even though she wouldn't be seeing Jackson or any of his friends as much after his betrayal, their time together had made her realize that real love didn't talk like that. Kaleigh could almost pity Lana, knowing that her mother was missing out on the closeness that Kaleigh and Aaron had. But that pity was not greater than the need to circumvent any more damage to her family. "I need you to leave," she said. "What?" Kaleigh pointed back to the apartment. "Please pack your things and get out." "You can't disrespect me like this," Lana sputtered. "And just think of Aaron." "I am thinking of Aaron. You can stay for dinner, but then please call your friends and see if there's somewhere else you can go." "Ungrateful girl, just see how far you can make it without me. You can't handle that little boy. Raising a child on your own is not as easy as I made it look. You'll see." Kaleigh simply returned to the living room and doled out the rest of the supper in silence. Lana was right. It wouldn't be easy. But neither would Kaleigh continue to let the fear of letting people in stop her from getting help. Nice people were out there, and Kaleigh needed to surround herself with them. She could only hope that one day Lana would see her daughter's example and do the same. Kaleigh woke up feeling uneasy. She didn't know why. She didn't have to worry about Lana giving her a hard time anymore. Last night, her mother had texted a friend and left before brownies. Kaleigh glanced at her phone. It was 8 a.m. Aaron usually woke her up by now. She unplugged the phone and pulled an oversized sweatshirt over her pajamas. In her slippers, she padded over to Lana's old room, which Aaron had asked to move into last night. The bed was empty. "Aaron," she called, returning to the kitchen. The open pantry door caught her eye, where a jumbo box of pre-bagged snack crackers was turned on its side. Aaron's backpack, which he loved to fill with his crayons and drawings, was missing from beside the kitchen table. Her wallet, on top of the table, was open. "Aaron!" she cried. Her fingers tingled and her vision fogged. She shook her head to clear it. She couldn't give in now. Her baby was missing. Kaleigh ran outside, hoping he had just left, but saw no one. She called Lana. Her mother answered coolly. Are you asking me to come back already? Did you take Aaron? Really, Kaleigh, your outburst last night was enough. You don't have to accuse me of kidnapping my own grandson. Kaleigh figured her mother was telling the truth. Lana wouldn't willingly take on that much responsibility, even to make Kaleigh mad, and she certainly wouldn't have had to make a mess of the junk food. Lana's voice grew concerned. He's probably just playing somewhere in the house. He isn't. He would have answered when I called. Check the park and anywhere he could walk that he likes to go. I'll let you know when I find him. Kaleigh hung up. She grabbed her keys and ran to Mrs. Macaulay's apartment first. Her neighbor swung open the door after a few hard knocks. Kaleigh, what's the matter? Aaron's missing. Have you seen him today? Her mouth dropped open. No, what can I do? Kaleigh took her house key off her keyring and placed it in Mrs. Macaulay's wrinkled hand. Stay in my apartment in case he comes back. I've got to keep looking. Mrs. Macaulay nodded and shuffled over to her end table to get her cell phone, but Kaleigh didn't have time to linger. She raced to her car and sped to the community playground. She scanned the swings first, then got out and peered through all the bright yellow tunnels, but Aaron wasn't hiding in any of them. The tears started falling as Kaleigh returned to her car. She rested her forehead on the steering wheel for a moment. Then, with trembling hands, she dialed 911. A woman with a professional voice picked up immediately. 911, what's your emergency? My child is missing. Kaleigh choked, the spoken words making it feel so much more real. When did you discover that he or she was missing? This morning when I woke up. I haven't seen him since I tucked him in last night. He's never done anything like this before. What is your son's name? Aaron Taylor. She pulled at her messy bun. He has dark blonde hair, brown eyes, and he'll be 5 in 2 days. Height and weight? Why couldn't she think? I'm not sure, but at doctor's appointments, he's usually in the 50th percentile for weight and 90th for height. Don't worry, ma'am, I can pull up a growth chart. Is there anyone who Aaron might be with? His father, maybe. No, I haven't had contact with his father in 5 years. Where else could he have gone? Breathe in, breathe out. I checked our playground. I'm not sure where else he could have gone on his own. Does Aaron know how to use public transportation? Kaleigh gripped the phone tighter. We took the city bus to the hospital before when I had car trouble. It looks like he took money out of my wallet. We'll send a team to the hospital and also set up a perimeter around your neighborhood. Please keep your phone on you. We'll be by to collect a photograph. Kaleigh nodded along in a daze before realizing the operator couldn't see her. Of course, thank you. The operator broke the connection. Kaleigh's head was pounding. She couldn't just sit here. She needed backup. Without a moment of hesitation, she called Jackson. Their relationship drama didn't matter anymore. He picked up on the third ring. Aaron's gone, Kaleigh wailed. I don't know where he is. Where are you? Jackson asked. I'm at our neighborhood playground. I'll be right there. Stay where you are. Kaleigh numbly watched the minutes click by on the dashboard's digital display. In just 2 minutes' time, Jackson pulled in the parking space to her left, his tires squealing. He yanked open Kaleigh's door and gathered her into his arms. The embrace slowed Kaleigh's thundering pulse, but she couldn't linger there long. The 911 operator thought Aaron might have taken a bus. Let's check the library. He loves going to story time there. Wait. Kaleigh's brain struggled to click thoughts together in the right order. I need to leave a picture for the police. Run by my apartment first. They buckled up and took off in Jackson's car. Back home, Kaleigh blew by Mrs. Macaulay in the living room, hollering that there'd been no news. She hurried to her bedroom, yanked a recent photo of Aaron out of an album, and offered it to the sitter. Please give this to the police if we're not back before they come. Mrs. Macaulay nodded. The 911 operator had likely assumed Kaleigh would stay at the apartment and meet with the police, but Kaleigh never had been very good at sitting still. She had to do something for Aaron or she'd go crazy. Jackson had never been to the town's library before, so Kaleigh fed him directions on the way. They soon arrived at the White Historical Building a few blocks from the downtown area. Jackson questioned the librarian at the front desk while Kaleigh ran through the library's 3 small rooms, but Aaron was nowhere to be found. What about the store? Jackson asked. I do grocery delivery. We never go anywhere else. Kaleigh massaged her temples. Jackson thought for a moment. I'll text Pastor Thomas and tell him to get the members to start looking too, starting with the church building. Let's go to the church too. I have to keep searching. I can't just wait around. Jackson nodded and they zoomed off again. When they drove up, the tall house of worship loomed like a prison rather than a haven. If he isn't here... Kaleigh staggered up the stairs where Pastor Thomas was unlocking the front door. She burst through as soon as he pulled the door open. Aaron? Her voice echoed forlornly through the empty building. Jackson took a left, so she went right towards the sanctuary. Kaleigh didn't know where the light switches were, but enough sun was coming through the stained glass that it didn't matter. The air must have been turned off, and the heat felt oppressive as she stalked down the rows of chairs in the open room. She crouched on her knees to look underneath the chairs when she reached the front. Combing through yet another place where Aaron was absent stripped Kaleigh of all her energy. She sat back on her heels and looked up at the pulpit. God, are you here? She whispered. She had tried to do her best to do right by Aaron, and still she had lost him. After all her years of struggling and loving, he was gone. God, I will never ask for anything again. Please, please bring him back. Her tears streamed down. I have to see him again. Kaleigh remembered how scared she'd been when she found out she was pregnant. Even when he was old enough to move in her belly, the sensation felt alien as the unexpected little guy turned her world and her stomach upside down for 9 months. But when the nurses had placed Aaron on her chest the moment after he was born, and he quieted like he knew her, joy and purpose had flooded through all her doubts. Looking back, Kaleigh regretted deeply every time she'd been resentful for having no time for herself. She was sorry for any moment that she wasted being stressed out and frustrated with Aaron. She lowered her head back to the ground, still whispering, "Please, please." No mystical voice descended from the heavens and revealed the location of her son, but 2 short, impossible phrases echoed in her mind. I have you. I'm here. Sometime later, she felt Jackson's large hand on her shoulder. She hadn't even heard him come in. I didn't find him, he said, his voice strained. I was thinking, maybe we should check Johnson's family farm. I know he went there once for the fall festival. Kaleigh slowly rose and swiped her cheeks. I'll try anything. Jackson took her by the hand, as her determination had morphed into a fog, as if she was out of her body. They got in the car and drove out of town, down the country road that led out to the sprawling ranch. Gravel crunched beneath Jackson's tires as they approached the red barn. Jackson, Kaleigh breathed, pointing through the windshield. A little figure was sitting on a haystack outside of the farm, bawling his eyes out. Before Jackson had fully parked, Kaleigh flung the door open, rushed over, and swept her son up into her arms. Aaron, don't you ever do that to me again. I love you. I love you so much. What were you thinking? I'm sorry, Mommy, Aaron cried, and Kaleigh shushed him, wiping the tears off of his face. I've got you now. She rocked him back and forth silently, giving him a moment to catch his breath. When Aaron calmed down, he said, I heard Grandma say your life would be easier if I left. I remember that movie I watched at Jackson's house, where the little girl lied to the bus driver about where her mommy was and made him drop her off at her favorite place. This is my favorite place, but it's scary without you. Of course it is, baby. And don't ever think that you make my life harder. You make my life worth living. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Aaron nodded and buried his face in her stomach. Jackson stood by their side, tears in his eyes as well. Kaleigh waved him over so he could sit on the haystack with them, and he put his arms around them both. I'm not going to Costa Rica, he burst out. I don't care if you never speak to me again. I'm going to stay right here, where the people I love the most are. I will be here for you in whatever way you need me. I love you, he repeated, breaking down into a sob. Jackson had been wrong to keep his plans from Kaleigh, but he'd also shown up for her and Aaron more times than she could count. His offering, his raw commitment, gave her the courage to speak the truth that she'd been denying. She could make it without Jackson, but she no longer wanted to. "We love you too." Jackson pulled back and, after searching for the confirmation in her eyes, his drawn, anxious face brightened with joy. He hugged them even harder, kissing the top of Kaleigh's head first, and then the top of Aaron's. Aaron yelled out, "Finally!" Kaleigh knew she should probably reprimand Aaron for celebrating after scaring them to death, but she was so grateful he was there that she broke down into laughter instead. After they called law enforcement, Pastor Thomas, Lana, and Mrs. McCauley, this would all be over, and they were going to be okay. Epilogue. 1 year later. Jackson winked at Kaleigh on his way out of hydrangea. He'd worked on the opening shift this morning, and Kaleigh would close the store down. He still couldn't believe that this resilient, gorgeous woman was his girl. He drove to the parent pickup line at Citrus Ridge Elementary, where a very happy kindergartner rushed into his back seat, eager to tell Jackson all about the letter sounds he'd learned in school. Jackson had always seen staying at hydrangea as a death sentence, but now it was a much happier place, a means to making all of their goals a reality. In the mornings, Kaleigh took PTA classes, and on Jackson's days off, he poured all of his time into a newfound passion, creating a nonprofit. Once the organization opened, with the newly minted couple, D'Angelo and Miss Lewis, at its helm, single parents would be able to take parenting classes, earn incentives for life milestones like opening a savings account, receive childcare as often as once per week, and get career counseling. If it was up to Jackson, no one would have to struggle alone for years like Kaleigh had. Bright Tomorrows was set to open in a month, and Jackson already had several donors from the community lined up to support the project. The biggest contributor of all, however, was Mr. Marcus Green of Iowa City. The day he decided to face his father, Jackson had called Marcus like a man. The question was too important to be texted or emailed. Jackson had drummed his fingers against his couch's arm until Marcus picked up. "Jackson?" "Hi, Dad." He got straight to it. "I'm calling because I have a business proposal." "I'm listening." Jackson took a deep breath. "You've always told me to identify the consumer's need. Well, there is a great need to help single parents in this community." Marcus's tone was droll. "And how do you intend to make a profit off of struggling parents?" "I won't make a profit, but I was hoping that you might be interested in expanding your philanthropic interests. I have a contact who started a food pantry from the ground up, and she's willing to help me organize fundraisers to keep this thing going for the long run. We just need donors to get started." Silence followed. It was not Marcus's usual style. "I can't say that I'm happy about this, Jackson," he finally said. "I wanted more for you than directing a charity and barely scraping by. Are you prepared to sacrifice your way of life?" "Living for others isn't really a sacrifice. I think it's the best way to live." Jackson smiled. At last he understood what God had been trying to teach him. "If you could keep funding my apartment for a few more months while I build a basic salary into the budget, I'll become independent." "I'm glad you're showing some initiative. A philanthropic angle could help my case in making company VP." Jackson held his breath. "Yes, it could. I'll have my secretary make the arrangements." Jackson could imagine Marcus's brisk nod from over the phone. "Thank you, Father." Marcus cleared his throat. "Goodbye, Jackson." He disconnected the call. It hadn't been easy to call him father, to remove all the angry names Jackson had attached to the man over 23 years from his mind. As Jackson had made mistakes and been forgiven by Kaleigh and by God, he had to work to let go of this past pain. The memories still visited Jackson often. The vision of his driver in the bleachers during his first hockey game instead of his father. The anger he'd felt at Marcus's Christmas office party witnessing big, happy families singing carols and drinking punch, with siblings chasing each other around the tree. Jackson's own upbringing had been stale and colorless, but that wasn't where he was now. He wanted to be grateful for new things, for good things, and to move forward in freedom toward the next chapter of his life. Jackson wouldn't be held prisoner by his dark days anymore. On Tuesday mornings, when Kaleigh wasn't scheduled to work, she and Aaron would meet Jess and Noah at the Summer Shores Community Center for an arts and crafts class. Aaron wasn't uppity about spending time with a boy who was 3 years younger than him. Instead, he'd adopted the toddler like a little brother and was now helping him to color, cut, and string ribbon through a paper lion mask. Sitting with her friend, Kaleigh felt like she'd been adopted too, into a support system. She hadn't known how wonderful it would be to have another woman there who knew what she was going through. A woman who knew how to listen and give instead of to twist and take. As their children compared their masterpieces, Jess leaned over to Kaleigh and teased, "You and Jackson look like you're getting serious. He always has his arm around you in church, and I've seen him grab your hand under the lunch table." Jackson had been the perfect gentleman at the beginning of their official relationship, so much so that Kaleigh had started to complain. Now they were nearly inseparable. "He asked me what I thought about marriage the other day," she admitted. "No." "Yes. I said that I never thought I would get married, but my whole life has turned out differently than I thought, in the best way. I trust him, and I don't want to be with anyone else, so why not?" "Does this mean you're engaged?" Jess's voice squeaked, and Kaleigh shushed her. "No, we were just talking." "Still, he could propose any day now." Jess threw her arms around Kaleigh. "I'm so happy for you." It was all a little overwhelming, but the truth was, I'm happy too. Kaleigh and Aaron kept going to church after their initial visit, their connection to the teaching and the members growing until both had asked to be baptized. Jackson had thought that the fall festival was his happiest day, and later when he and Kaleigh had gone on their first official date. But seeing the little boy he loved more than life rise up out of that water, grinning from ear to ear, seeing Kaleigh laugh like an unburdened child herself, his days just kept getting better. Truly, God had redeemed the hard times the Taylors had experienced, and through them, he had redeemed Jackson from his loneliness. God had even saved him from his doubting when he almost let his best gifts go. Though Jackson knew he was unworthy of all he'd been given, he was grateful. And thinking about all that had transpired gave Jackson the courage to ask one more very important question. As he pulled out of the grade school parking lot, he looked to Aaron in the rearview mirror and asked, "How would you feel if I asked your mom to marry me?" "Yeah, woohoo!" Aaron, kicking the back of the driver's seat in celebration, was all the answer Jackson needed. As he turned his gaze to the road, a smile broke free. Kaleigh and Aaron met Jackson at the rink for what they thought was a normal skating lesson. He hadn't told Aaron when he would propose, too afraid that the little man couldn't keep a secret. "Are you feeling okay?" Kaleigh asked as the boys put on their skates. She must have noticed Jackson's heavy breathing and the sheen of sweat on his brow. "I'm just anxious to get out there," he hedged. It was the truth, just not for the reasons Kaleigh was thinking. "Are you ready for your lesson, buddy?" "Yep." After a year's worth of skating, Aaron was now able to gear up with only a minimal amount of help. Soon Kaleigh settled into the bleachers while they took the ice. "I've got a special warm-up exercise today," Jackson told Aaron. But instead of drawing wavy lines and X's on the ice to help Aaron practice rapid turns and crossovers, Jackson used his thick black marker to inscribe foot-long letters onto the surface, spelling out, "Will you marry me?" Kaleigh watched him curiously, especially when Aaron started jumping up and down and waving at her, but from her seat in the bottom row, she hadn't read the words. By now, some of the other skaters had stopped to watch. Jackson took Aaron, whose anticipation was rapidly transforming into a safety hazard, by the hand. They skated to the ice's entrance. Kaleigh joined them, What's going on? Then she saw the words. Jackson got down on one knee then, pulling the ring box from the pocket of his black windbreaker. The wet seeping through the knee of his jeans distracted him momentarily from his nerves, enough to spit out what he needed to say. Kaleigh. He stared into her wide eyes. For the first time in my life, I love someone much more than I love myself. You and Aaron mean more to me than anything on this earth. Will you marry me? Get up. Kaleigh yanked Jackson to his feet. It wasn't the answer he was hoping for. Then she jumped into his arms. His skates grasped for purchase to no avail. For the second time this year, Kaleigh literally knocked him off his feet. She grabbed his collar and pulled him in for an urgent kiss. Heat rushed through his body. He was surprised the ice wasn't steaming underneath him as he returned the kiss and clutched her closer. She'd said yes. She'd be his forever. The onlookers burst into applause and cheers. Jackson broke the kiss and chuckled. He eased Kaleigh to her feet and plucked up the engagement ring, which she'd knocked out of his hand in her eager acceptance. Did you want this, or? Yes! Tears pooled behind Kaleigh's eyes as she took in the classic twist of diamonds. It was unfussy and exquisite, just like her. It's beautiful, thank you. You never have to thank me again. I'll spend every day trying to thank you for being the greatest gift of my life. You deserve the best, but I'm selfishly glad you settled for me. You are the best. And as Kaleigh clutched his arms, she could almost make him believe it. He knew he hadn't earned a life with her and Aaron, the newly shared faith or a mending relationship with his parents. But he wasn't running from his failures anymore. He'd root himself deep down in love, in gratitude, living out the life God had perfectly portioned for them. Psalm 68, 5-6. A father of the fatherless and a judge of the widows is God in his holy habitation. God setteth the solitary in families. The end.